Meeting is adjourned. I'd like to call the work session in order for June 6th. Would the clerk read the roll call?
Let the record reflect that all members are present.
Thank you. We have one item on the agenda. We'd like to remind council that staff will be pausing intermediately to answer any questions. Let the public know who we have here. Go ahead, introduce yourself.
Okay, Mayor, council members, good evening. I'm Jenna Goad. I'm the assistant to the city manager, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about performance measurement. As council is aware, the city currently performs performance measurement both through our annual budget book. We provide twice annual updates on our progress towards our strategic plan, but there was a goal in the FY 22-24 plan to implement an enhanced performance measurement program. So this work session is in response to that item. Just by way of the agenda for the evening, I'm going to provide a little of additional background. We'll review the draft measures, and then I'll just briefly discuss next steps. So as I mentioned, council did include a goal in our new FY 22-24 strategic plan to implement an enhanced performance measurement program. So along with staff from the IT department, I met with all of the other departments in the city to discuss their existing data collection efforts, to understand what data they're currently collecting, and also what systems they're using to collect and then store that data. We also reviewed examples from other cities in the valley, including Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe, and also national examples from cities such as San Jose, California, and Boulder, Colorado. In terms of the criteria that we were looking for when considering these measures, we were looking for measures that could be reported on a quarterly basis, are related to council's priorities, are largely within staff's control, and include an element of performance, such as quality, timeliness, or satisfaction. Now, I do want to start very briefly with just a quick discussion of the different types of performance measures. Many of the measures that are often used are what we would call output or workload measures, which are simply raw counts of either services being provided or units of something being produced, such as the number of inspections completed. There are also efficiency measures, which compare the resources that it takes to produce those outputs. So for example, that would be something like inspections per employee per day. And then finally, there are outcome measures, which show how effective a program or a service is. For example, perhaps the percentage of cases that are resolved through voluntary compliance. Most of the measures that we're proposing are either efficiency or outcome measures because we're focused on monitoring organizational performance. There are also both lagging and leading indicators. Lagging measures look at the end result of what we're hoping to achieve, but after the fact. So an example of a lagging measure might be that in our resident survey, which we conduct every 2 years, we measure our residents' overall feeling of safety. Leading measures look at the things that we're doing to achieve or influence those results in advance. So for example, the percentage of proactive police officer time might be a leading measure that would be correlated to a resident's overall feeling of safety. The proposed measures include mostly leading indicators because, again, the focus is on measuring our organizational performance frequently to inform decisions and make needed adjustments. The resident survey that we then conduct every other year gauges the public's satisfaction with those programs and services that we've been providing. The document attached to the agenda includes a listing of the 54 proposed measures organized by our 4 focus areas. You'll see that it includes the measures along with a description of what impact that measure has or why it's important, either to the organization or to our stakeholders. Now, the departments also have dozens, if not hundreds, of other measures that they're tracking. But for these new quarterly reports, we wanted to stick with something that would be digestible and understandable for both the council and the public. And so those are the 54 that we are proposing to include. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all 54 of those measures. I'm sure you're disappointed. But I will highlight just a few from each of the focus areas. Our first focus area is fiscal and resource management. You can see two of the examples here would be the percent that our investment returns exceed the market benchmark. So to what extent we're able to produce additional revenue that could be used for other city priorities. And then also the percentage of public safety fleet availability. So that shows that we're doing a good job doing our preventative maintenance, and those vehicles are available for our first responders to then be using to serve our public. Our second focus area is economic vitality. Two of the measures in this category would be the number of new retail and entertainment businesses, specifically that were assisted by our Goodyear Economic Development Department, and then also the percentage of commercial and industrial construction plans that are approved on the second review. Our third focus area is sense of community, and in this area we have the percent of ideas that were pitched by our digital communications department to media outlets that then successfully result in coverage of some sort, and also the overall attendance and participation as a percentage of the target for our Parks and Rec programs, including the ballpark, the library, and other events. So not only, how many people are attending, but how well are we utilizing the amount of spaces that we have or the attendance that we were hoping to receive. And then our final focus area is quality of life. So within this focus area, just two examples. We have the percentage of patients that were treated by our fire department who are delivered to the hospital with a pulse, patients who had been experiencing cardiac arrest. And then also the case clearance rates for both violent and property crimes, for crimes that were being investigated by our police department. In terms of next steps, I will be working with the IT department to identify the best platform to collect and then display this data. We would begin providing the reports by the end of next year, of FY23, and then provide them quarterly going forward. The reports will be available to the public through an interactive online dashboard on our website. I do want to note that we do anticipate there would be some ongoing refinement and enhancement as we begin to collect and then report on these measures. And I would also suggest that we do a complete review of the measures in FY26 or maybe 27, once we have a few years of data to see if it's meeting our needs, if we're measuring the right things. And so with that, Mayor and Council, that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Should I start with Councilmember Stipp? I'll bring you last? Okay, how about Councilmember Bray? You good? Councilmember Kano? Councilmember Kano?
I'm looking at the 54, it's quite a bit. And granted, things will ebb and flow and be refined as you go along. And definitely see where it links in. So I think you're off to a good start. I think you're off to a good start.
Councilmember Campbell?
Thank you, Gina. I've got a question. How does police and fire report these, what you want to hear from them? Do they do this case by case? Do they do this monthly? I mean, how cumbersome is it to them for police and fire to have to do this? That's just another step of something else they have to do.
Sure, Mayor and Councilmember Campbell. So our intent is that it would not cause additional work for staff, that we would be able to work with IT, as I mentioned, to use systems that could pull this data out of the systems that the departments are already using. So I can't speak specifically to what system police and fire uses to track their data. I don't know if perhaps one of the chiefs, both of the chiefs want to respond to that. But my understanding is it's data that they are already tracking, and it would really just be a matter of using software to extract it and put it into a centralized dashboard.
Okay.
Good evening, Paul Louisi, Interim Deputy City Manager. For the fire department, what we use is a module called Image Trend. So it tracks our data across EMS, fire, and then also fire prevention. So it's all in one area, so it's pretty easy to pull out. We're doing monthly reports anyways, so being able to share this information is just another part of our business.
Okay. I just didn't want to give you another step or something that you had to hire another staff to do something else.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, some of you attend our police review monthly meetings. A lot of this data we're already tracking, so we use our New World systems, which is our CAD and records management system, to remove that data and then obviously go through it and present it out. Some of it we use obviously for our Valley benchmark cities also. So it's just a matter of refining it and putting it into a dashboard that is very easy for not only for you to read, but our public to read also.
Okay, then it's really very current and up to date then. Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, no, I also think it's a good start, and I know it's not complete yet because it's not smart. I mean, there's not actionable goals that you've hit, that you're set up yet. So I know it'll get more refined along the way. So I think it's a good start. And I do like, leading indicators are obviously better because you're able to respond to them a lot quicker than the lagging indicators. So many leading indicators you can use is obviously better. So, but I think looking through, there's a lot of initiatives and objectives that you're striving for. So, no, I think it's good. What we measure is what can be changed. I mean, if you don't have a goal that you're trying to go for, you don't know if you want or not. So having those on there are good, and it's good to track those and to change those up as the organization changes as well. So thank you.
Councilmember Stipp?
Mayor, thank you. Jenna, thank you. We had, I think we brought this up a couple of years ago in a retreat about moving the city forward to this is the next step. There's, this idea of plan, do, check, which is management theory. This is the check part of what we have. I think when we first started this, the idea was let's get 2 or 3 per department that are meaningful measurements, et cetera, as we go through. And I think there's 14 departments, 13, 14. So if somebody do the math times 3 or 4 each, that gets us to close to 54. So we're kind of right in the right ballpark. Not measuring things that are useless, which I think to Councilmember Campbell's point is really important. I would be curious to see the list with these measures in it, and then how that equates to the types of measurements that they are. Whether it you had the early chart, whether it's an output and efficiency or an outcome. I would be curious just to see that kind of as a gee whiz for the rest of us, as I'm going to say the rest of the council moves through this journey of performance measurement. This is something that I do with a lot of our clients throughout the country, so this is really important. It does tell us how we're doing. You've heard me go through this tirade of response times don't tell us anything. It's what we measure afterwards. So this cardiac survivability and some of those other components are really important for us. And I had an opportunity to sit with Jenna a couple weeks ago, and one of the biggest things that we tell everybody is when you read the performance measurement, you should add the phrase, whatever the performance measurement is, comma, so what? And if you can answer so what after that measurement, then you're in good shape. And what is this telling us? And so again, I'll pick on the fire one. That one's easy. Response time. So what? Well, because of that, your cardiac survivability is this high, your fire savior is this high. And we can do that with each one of these. And if you can't answer so what, then you probably need to question why we're measuring it. And there's not a lot of that going on in here. I know we talk about reviewing this again in 26 or 27. I would suggest, since Sherry and I will be long gone by then, that perhaps the remaining members of council think about looking at this again in 26. There may be things that are currently impeding us from being able to measure things today that are important. You know, there may be software problems and things that we haven't even figured out yet that perhaps can solve a problem that allows us to measure things moving on down the road. And I will end with a street sweeper scenario, that had we been measuring the street sweeping
That's true.
throughout the years, we may have found that the street sweeper would have been needed much sooner than it was today. As a matter of fact, when we talked about this, I laughed, and I have to look at Winnette, because we were sitting in this very room talking about this in like 2013 or 2014, talking about a street sweeper nonetheless. And we said, how are we going to know if we need it? Well, if we were measuring the amount of tonnage that we were collecting, we would know whether we needed to add it. So I think most importantly, it allows us to very confidently go throughout the community and tell the public when they say, why did you add a street sweeper? We can say, because we've measured this and this was the result of that. We can answer, so what? And so from a government efficiency and effectiveness perspective, we have good measurements. From a political perspective, we can move forward with that. I know for the entire staff, this has probably been a lot of work and probably a giant pain in the saddle, but this will make us a much better organization moving forward, and I'm very grateful that we are here tonight. So with that, I'm going to conclude and say thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate all the work that you're putting in to get this done. And the stipper, when that comes in, we'll make sure that that street sweeper is out there doing what it needs to do. With that being said, no further business. This meeting is adjourned.